How to Paint an Easy Sunflower by Tracy from Step by Step Painting. This is an 11-inch by 14-inch canvas, and I'm going to start out by tracing a circle. This is a plate, and it's about 6 inches in diameter. I'm going to use a pencil to trace it. I'm going to place it about 2 fingers on the left and on the bottom. So kind of position it where you want it. You're going to have more petals showing if you place it more towards the middle, but I wanted less petals showing on the bottom and left. So trace the circle with a pencil. We're going to start out by painting that circle with the color Burnt Umber, and you can paint that circle with any brush. I'm going to use this 1/2-inch Filbert brush to paint that circle. So the color I'm using is Burnt Umber, and basically just paint in that circle a nice solid coat. You don't really need to worry about the direction of your strokes here, just paint that circle in. Place that brush in the water and get a number 8 round brush in the color Cadmium Yellow Hue. If you don't have Cadmium Yellow Hue, look for a Cadmium Yellow Medium. I'm going to dip my number 8 round brush in that Cadmium Yellow, and I'm going to paint the petals. I'm going to start at the bottom and overlap it just a bit. Now, if that brown is not dry, that is okay, that is good, because I actually want to purposely drag some of that brown into the yellow. And you're going to hear me refer it as sunflower yellow. It's kind of this golden yellow when the yellow and the brown mix together. Okay, you're going to paint each petal using this round brush, so overlap the bottom part just a bit, and I'm not really worrying about the petals that are next to each other, whether or not they're overlapping. At this point, I'm just painting them as if they were right next to each other. So the petal starts as a curve on the bottom, it gets thicker in the middle, and it kind of comes to a point. And then you're going to do that all the way around. Paint each petal. And there's going to come a part, see that the brown dragged with that yellow a bit. That's okay, that's what we want. There's going to come a part where that petal goes off the canvas. So you're just going to kind of estimate how that would look. So we don't see the tip on the petals on the left. Still try to form the same shape as what it would look like on the bottom of the petal, but drag it so it goes off the canvas. Okay, I'm not going to rinse my brush at this point, and I'm going to kind of make that golden sunflower yellow that I was talking about. So mix, you saw me drag my brush a little bit on the palette, load it with both the Cadmium Yellow and the Burnt Umber. So just a tiny bit of that Burnt Umber. You don't want too much because we don't want it to look brown. We want it to look like a golden sunflower yellow. And I'm painting the bottom part of all the petals using this kind of drag sort of stroke. So I'm just starting at the very base of the petal and just kind of dragging it with my brush. So pressing firm and kind of drag so it fades away. This is the dark part of my sunflower that's going to show through the painting when we do the lighter part. So we're kind of going from dark to light with these petals. As you reload your brush each time when you're grabbing more paint on your brush, try not to get so much brown on it. Reload it with mostly the yellow, because the more brown it accumulates on that brush, that yellow is going to be too dark. So we don't want it to look brown per se. We want it to be a dark yellow. So more yellow, less brown. And then also what's important is that the color is not going to be the same all around these petals. Purposely making it look slightly different. See, this one has a little bit more brown and other ones have a little bit more yellow, and that's okay. That's where we're allowed to be imperfect, because the color variation works in our favor with this sunflower. Okay, so I'm going to put my brush in the water and load on my palette the color Primary Yellow, Titanium White, and then I'm going to put some more Cadmium Yellow Hue on my palette. So I'm using two different types of yellow. The Primary Yellow is a brighter yellow than the Cadmium Yellow, slightly brighter, so two different shades of yellow here. And I'm going to load my brush, my Filbert brush, in Primary Yellow and Cadmium Yellow. So I have the lighter yellow and I have the darker yellow on my brush. Both of them are loaded. So just basically the double loading is you're dipping it in both of the colors and painting. And I mentioned that color variation. This is what's going to happen as I paint each of the petals. That yellow, that primary yellow and that cadmium yellow are just kind of mixed together differently for each petal. And as you're painting the petal, notice how the strokes are kind of flowing. You want to allow the strokes to fill in the shape, to kind of contour, curve, and go with the shape of the petal, to kind of flow with the petal. And then I'm not mixing it all together to get a solid color. Ideally, I want it to kind of blend with that golden brownish yellow that I did on the bottom, so it kind of smooths better. If it's looking too dark for you on the bottom of the petal, then that's fine. We are going to add another layer yet on top of this. So if it's like a drastic, it looks brown on the bottom and then all of a sudden it's yellow, don't worry about it at this point. Just try to get that brownish yellow to kind of blend in just a bit. It'll still show through. Okay, so I painted those petals and I'm going to go back to my number 8 round brush, and I'm going to make that sunflower yellow again, that burnt umber and cadmium yellow, more cadmium yellow than the burnt umber. So I'm going to mix those together on my palette, and I'm going to paint in my back petals with that number 8 round brush. And I'm actually going to use that brush to just fill it in solid as well. Okay, notice my palette, how when I mix the two colors together, it didn't turn into a solid color, and that's fine. Again, color variation, that's what we want. Swirled colored on the palette so that it picks up different amounts of the cad yellow and the burnt umber. So just paint in the petals as they would look in between the top petals. And then the bottom area where those kind of open white spots are, I'm going to fill those in as well, because assuming the bottom part of the petals would be kind of showing through in between the bottom part of the brighter yellow front petals. So if you look at this particular petal, you can see how it's different with the colors. It ended up having more of the cad yellow in it because I just reloaded with more cad yellow, and that's okay. Don't stress if when you remix your color and it looks totally different. That's fine. Like I said, that color variation is what we are going for. And then I'm going to go in and fill out any of these white spots that are still opening with that golden yellow mixed color. I'm going to go back to my Filbert brush and grab the colors Primary Yellow and Titanium White. So double load the brush. It's got both the colors on the brush, and I'm gonna add a bright sort of almost like I'm creating petal texture here with those two colors, and very lightly. I don't want this white to take over. I want it to be very subtle, almost kind of feathery. So my brush has both the primary yellow and white on the brush, and I'm using mostly the tip of my brush to kind of create almost like these lines on the petal. And I'm very softly adding this layer on top of just the front petals. Don't do this to any of the back petals, just the front petals. Adding some brighter colors on top. So very lightly, that cad yellow, primary yellow layer that we first did, we still want that to kind of show through. So I'm not adding a solid coat over it to cover it up. I still want that under layer of the painting showing through. And then on the bottom part, I just kind of curved that part right here, so so the bottom petal, it looks like it is overlapping. So I did that with this petal as well. I did the curved part on the bottom to make that curved part brighter. Same thing with this petal. And then what I'm doing to each of the petals, I'm not making them exactly the same. Each petal is different from the petal next to it. The light's hitting each petal differently, so none of them will be uniform and the same. And I didn't do so much of that bottom curve part opening on the petals on the bottom. Rinse my brush off and just Cad Yellow Hue on my brush, and then I'm going to give another layer to these back petals, but no titanium white, just Cad Yellow, and add a just kind of slight texture over them, almost like I'm just doing another coat of paint but without the brown. This Cad Yellow that I'm using is a bit translucent, so if you're using a different brand, I'm using the DecoArt Americana Premium. Yours might be more opaque depending on what paint you're using, so just kind of adjust that as you're going. It works in my favor with this painting to have it be translucent because you can see a lot of the under layers of the colors. Sometimes when you look at a bottle of paint, depending on the brand, it'll tell you with different symbols how translucent or opaque it is, or it'll even label it as translucent or opaque. So you may have to adjust that depending on what paint you're using. Next, I'm going to do the center of my flower with just my number 8 round brush, and I'm going to do all stippling with this. I'm going to load my clean number 8 round brush with just carbon black, which is like a Mars black, and burnt umber, but mostly the black because I want it to be very dark so I can see it. And I'm gonna just do dots, and I'm gonna make a small circle, about 3 inches, just estimate 3-inch diameter circle in the middle, and I'm making all little dots, filling it in. And I'm reloading my brush with mostly black to make it dark and just a tiny bit of burnt umber here and there. Again, another color variation sort of thing. A little bit of brown kind of shows through, but mostly black. So this is a very dense circle, very solid, all dots. I'm not going to rinse my brush off, and I'm going to grab titanium white. So I still had that black on my brush, and then I dipped it in the titanium white. And I'm going to make a ring of dots around this black circle of dots. And what's going to happen is black and white make gray, so I'm going to get gray dots as a result of this. Dots that look, some are whiter, some are more gray, and then some of the black still shows through. That's what we want. Just a brighter ring around the black dots. And I'm not sure how thick this ring is going to be. If you want to estimate it, it's probably about 1 finger width of thickness. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to the burnt umber and black combo that I did in the center, but I'm going to do maybe a little bit more burnt umber than black. I want the very center to be darker. So still kind of the same combo, burnt umber black, but maybe just a little bit less black. And then of course I still had some of that white on the brush. You can rinse it. In this demonstration I didn't. I think in the instructions on the website I say to rinse it. It actually doesn't really matter which one you do, it's fine. And I'm gonna do the same thing, just kind of make those dots go all the way to the edge of that circle. So I kind of turn the painting for you just a little bit so you can see different angles of the light. Gonna fill it all up, and then that orange that I have, that Cadmium Orange Hue, is just to kind of spice things up a little bit. I'm gonna occasionally dip my brush in that orange color, and just on this outside part, nowhere in the center, nowhere on that white ring, just on this outside ring area. I'm going to do a little bit of orange here and there, and let that orange blend in with the brown, let it blend with the black, give it lots of different levels of color. take a break if you need to, if you're getting tired of doing all these dots. I personally I can probably do an entire painting with all just pointillism, stippling dots. I love it. It's like my zen when I do dots. I'm not nice to my brush when I do it. I pound my brush, so my poor brush got kind of smushed at the tip in the process, but it's so much fun. I'm going to show you here. So as we get closer to the outside part of the circle, I actually overlapped some of these dots, overlapped those petals a bit. See how they went over? If you think about it, a sunflower, this middle part has some dimension. It's kind of domed like a little bit, so that the fuzzy little center would overlap some of those petals a little bit depending on the angle that you're looking at. And so I went over just a little bit on some of the petals. And the outside edge, also the shape of that circle on the very outside doesn't form a perfect line or a perfect circle. So if I were to kind of retrace the circle, you wouldn't see a line forming a circle, because some of the little fuzzy areas on the outside edge, some of are overlapping, some are not. I'm gonna rinse my brush off completely to get all the color off of that brush, dry it, and add just titanium white to it. And I'm gonna do some areas in the middle of just the white and without it blending, and some areas on the ring of just the white. So think of it as the light is hitting some of the areas inside the sunflower, it's brighter, or even the white part of the sunflower seeds is kind of showing through, just to give it some highlight. And then some areas on the outer part as well of just the titanium white. So continuing on with just the little titanium white dots, the next step, I'm not going to render my flower anymore. This is it. I'm keeping it simple and easy. The background is going to be Ultramarine Blue, and I used a 1/4 inch flat brush to do the background, because the flat brush helps to really cut in on these petal shapes. And I'm going to paint it in a direction that's kind of going with the petals. So my strokes in the background are going in the radial sort of direction with the petals. And to make it easy, you can kind of use the tip of the brush to cut in on those brushes, and then you can kind of use the full width of the brush on the bigger areas. You can customize your background if you want it to do a different color, maybe a red for fall, or maybe purple and yellow contrast very nicely together. So it's up to you. I chose Ultramarine Blue because I love this color, and I like how it pops with the yellow. So just paint all that white part in, nice solid coat. When you get to some of those finer areas, grab the tiniest brush you have to fill in those little tiny cracks. This is a 5-0 round brush, so it's a very small round brush, and I'm just getting those tiny spaces filled in. I am painting the sides of this canvas with my Filbert brush. So over on the right, it's a good solid blue on the side. But the other sides, I actually extended that yellow over on the sides, and it looks very pretty when you do that, when you extend the petals over on the sides of the canvas. I'm going to show you how I did that in just a second. Okay, so that got cut off there, but what I did was on the side where the petals are, I only used cadmium yellow, so I didn't use any of the other yellows, just the cadmium yellow, and it gives the illusion that the petals are extending over. I didn't see it as necessary to use the other colors, just the one main color, which is the cad yellow, and I just painted like I'm painting lines. So I'm painting where the petals are, just painting straight across on the side, and then the in-between parts would be just the blue. So keep it simple. It does look very lovely when you look at it from an angle, because it looks like the sunflower is wrapped around the canvas. Okay. And And this last part is optional, but I have a little thing for spirals, so I'm going to use my tiny 5-0 round brush and just the titanium white. I'm going to do some designs in the background. So I'm going to start out by doing these little dots on the points of the petals. Again, you can just leave it blank. You could add your own kind of designs. You could do just the dots and not the spirals, or you can do just a few spirals. This is up to you. This is the part where you can just kind of add your own personal touch to the background. It's also important to note that I let that blue dry before doing these spirals so that white will show. If that blue wasn't dry, then the white wouldn't be so bright. So I'm just going to paint spirals all around the background. If you're watching this video on YouTube or Facebook, please don't forget to go to my website at www.stepbysteppainting.net, where you can see all of my tutorials with step-by-step process pictures. You can even view the video on the website as you're looking through the pictures as well. So don't forget to check that out. And check out all my other fall canvas painting designs. You can create your own collection of artwork. Thanks for watching.